Perfect.
So again, hi everyone. It's so good to be around you again, and I hope you have a great time. Yeah, today, Joe, and I, we are going to introduce you to a couple of our historic events that we made as I just wanted to say couple. I'm really sorry. As a friendship
Okay.
couple artist, uh, artistic friendship couple, because we have known each other for more than 10 years now, and we went through up and downs together, and created so many fantastic stories together also in the olden days of before the times of DeviantArt and so on. And it will be a lot of fun to show you a couple of steps that we have to take to bring an idea to an end. And there's always lots of fun in between. So,
I
and I'm really glad you're here. So I hope you have a great time next to JoJo. So how's your day going?
Pretty good. Yeah, I'm super excited also to be on here again. The second year in a row as a guest of honor, which is a big honor for me. And I'm also really looking forward to hopefully next year be able to attend physically, like in person. I've been to EF, I think, 2 times physically. One time to visit Alector, and one time to be at the dealer stand to sell my own prints and stuff. And yeah, like Alector said, today we wanted to give you a little look into our past as artists, how we made progress as artists, like how we started with our artworks, like from the early days, from the deviant art days, and also later on give you an insight into how we create our artworks. And yeah, that's the plan.
and I think it's a
Big
definitely
plan.
absolutely lovely plan there to actually show how you came to be what you're nowadays. To show the audience out there where someone who's rather famous nowadays in the fandom and outside has become to being this kind of, well, vendor of beautiful kind of art. So, I think we should not keep the people waiting. Jojo, would you maybe begin with your pretty much where you started from? Where did it all begin for you?
Yes. Whew, where do I start? So I remember, I think that's like the super basic artist thing. But I remember being an artist like as long as I can remember, like from my very, very, very early days. I was always drawing something. My mom always left pencils and paper at home everywhere. She like really encouraged us to draw and like be creative and stuff. And I have a pretty big family. I have 5 siblings in total. And lots of my siblings also are really creative. So I created a lot with my siblings together, especially with my oldest sister. And the cool thing is that she is a professional artist now as well. She's also pretty successful as an artist. She has her own clothing line, her own shop where she sells stuff. And it's so funny to think about how we both sat in my childhood room together. Like sometimes we skipped family meetings with a extended family because we didn't want to go there. We just wanted to stay home and just draw together. And then we plastered my whole walls with our drawings. And our parents came home and they were like, "What happened?" And my sister even like painted her own walls in her room. She like painted dragons on there and stuff. So yeah, I have really fond memories. Like that's like the first memories I have of the really early days. Um, and yeah, I don't know, like how was it for you, Alector? Like, what's the first artist memory that you can talk
Acquire.
about?
Unlike your childhood, it took a very long time for my mom to actually figure out that I need something like drawing equipment, because I started with basically art by smearing something like sausage paste into the cracks of the walls to plaster it through perfectly. And right before my father came home, who is a very cleanly man, he totally freaked out about it. And at some point, they caught me stealing pencils or anything I can smudge against the wall or against the table or anything flat or anything that shines.
Okay. Before you start going on, I hope that your parents still liked you
Yeah.
about that and didn't have to pretty much have to always
Oh yeah, they're happy.
okay, to re-clean the wall ever
Everything's
again.
There's nothing but pride now. So all is good. It took it took me a very long time to actually figure out what art really is, because I dabbled here and there and always felt like I felt something inside of me, and I wanted to create something, but I didn't know where to start. So at some point, I simply went out to the forest and instead of skipping family meetings, I skipped school sometimes to go out to the forest and draw leaves and imagine animals and everything that was, my little imaginary world. At some point, was something I imagined in my head, and then I tried to draw it. And of course, back then, when I was around 10 or 11, I found out books and the first concept design works and also manga and anime came right to Germany. And I was really drawn to it. And I tried to copy styles for myself, but translate them into my own versions. So, and it went on from there. And it was a really interesting but very slow process for me to actually find my art style and to notice that I'm
I,
an artist.
I think that is something that a lot of people can relate to. Jojo, was it something similar for you as well, that you had a little bit of a time until you really realized that you really like this kind of craft and took some kind of other style beforehand and copied that in the beginning? Was there something for you similar?
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking the same thing when Alector shared her story. For me, it was actually Harry Potter and also Lord of the Rings and Pokemon. These three were like huge inspirations for me in the beginning. I actually have something that I can show you, because that was like one of the first things that really, I think, got my creativity going. Was that I was such a fan of the Harry Potter series, and me and my siblings, and also with my best friend back then, we kind of pretended that we were students at Hogwarts, and I was always the teacher. And to be able to teach properly, I had to prepare school books for Harry Potter. So I have like tons of these books that I made myself. You can see like it's really not super well made, but like I wrote all these pages in there. I have like,
Love them.
like dragons and like a room of a wizard, like how to sort your stuff there, and like what a wizard really needs, and what else do I have? Like here's some pages about like different magical creatures and like how to find them or how to fight them or whatever. And I
Remember,
have like literally so many of these. It's crazy.
it's amazing. I remember. I'm not sure if I remember it correctly, but I had one of these books in my hands when I came over to your place, and one of them had a page, I think about the dark arts or so, and it had a tiny sachet inside with tea or so. I'm not sure if that was right, or you could actually unfold it, and there was something inside of the book. So it was like a mini booklet inside of the book, and I really loved this kind of detail.
I think it's this
It's
one
like
maybe. There's like lots of
so
like letters. You can like open them, or here, wait, yeah, stuff
What?
like that. Oops.
so much love and detail, and
Like you can
yay!
kind of open everything, and it's like
Okay.
because I had these. There's like a book series like that came out when I was younger, about dragons and about Egypt, like the old Egypt and stuff. And they also had these letters in there and stuff that you can pull out and look at. And I was so inspired by that, so I wanted to create my own school books. And I also created a whole Pokedex of Pokemon. I think it's like 250. that was also with my best friend. Wait, I can show you some. For example, here. It's like a pillow and bed Pokemon. So there's a pillow and it evolves into two different kinds of, like an evil bed and a whatever.
Does it evolve into a box spring bed? The most expensive ones, the really, really good ones in the later stages.
It's insane. Like I spent so much time with my friend just thinking of all these like different Pokemon and like even when they evolve at which level, and some of them even have all the like attacks that they learn at certain levels and stuff. And I think like this time was really where like my passion for art really started, where I really felt like, wow, it's so much fun to create these worlds by myself. And so that was like a huge inspiration and kickstart for me, I think, as an artist.
Did I understand it correctly that you were sitting together with your friends pretty much for years to building these different kinds of worlds? Or was it rather something that you did sometimes on the weekends and it just evolved over a specific kind of time?
I think it was all through like from fourth grade to sixth or seventh grade. I think that's kind of the time frame. So like around 3 years. And I think we spent almost every weekend and even sometimes during the week we got together and drew these things and wrote these books and stuff. So it was like a constant thing for me for like a long period in my early childhood.
I can completely
I
understand
remember
that.
this too. I had one friend back then down in the south in Pirmasens, a very small town that people somehow know. And I had one friend who always came over during holidays, school holidays, and we always sat on the balcony. We had a balcony back then with a small shade, and it was beautiful. Always in the summer, we had our time there, sat there for 10 hours, and just dreamed about worlds and had something like dreams like one day we're going to be comic artists, and we try to draw and write manga stories, and we were all over the place. And that was also the time when I drew my very first dragon picture on square paper. It was amazing. And I don't know. It's so Joe. I can totally feel for that. I remember that feeling, and it's really beautiful. And if you think back to if you think about the time, do you still feel this when you have deadlines nowadays? So when you have lots of work ahead for you, like big projects, or so, when you work for Ravensburger, do you sometimes get that feeling back when you get an idea by the person you work with, or that feeling of excitement and novelty, like when you think back
Yeah,
to the old days with your friends when you sat there and you had you had to think about all the new things to come that you can create.
that's a really interesting question because that's something I think about a lot. I feel like back then I really didn't have any expectations. Like there was no pressure. It was just creating for the sake of creating, just because it was so much fun to live in these fantasy worlds and imagine all these things. And now, as a professional artist, it's still also like really fun at times. And there's like amazing moments and these periods where I feel really inspired. But then also there's a lot more pressure and there's a lot more like you need to perform, you need to finish until this deadline, you need to deliver something that looks a certain way. And I think part of that initial excitement and enthusiasm, like there's like periods, there's some periods where it just feels like a job a little bit, and then there's periods where I feel like, wow, this is really cool, this is so exciting, this is so fun. And I think acknowledging that is important. Like if you are a professional artist, it's not just bliss all the time. Like you have these ups and downs. It's like a mixture of things. I don't know if it's the same for you, Alector.
Yeah, since I work on my personal projects most of the time, I do have the constant excitement, even though it's always a big ton of work. It's a big time effort as well. And I always have the very big goal in front of my head. So and there's always a very long stretch of way still to go, and it always comes with up and downs, of course. But getting up in the morning and feeling really excited about the next part and next step, it's still there, and I'm really happy about it. So this
Yeah.
is exactly what keeps me going, and which also leads me to the one really important or an interesting question I have, because I was asked this not too long ago. How much confidence do you feel in your art? Do you sometimes have moments where you think your body actually wants to do something else, like sleep, for example, or your mind is totally somewhere else, but you keep drawing, and in the end, it turns out really well? This is what I mean with art confidence, because at a certain stage, you are progressed so much in technique and with the approach of art that you are confident enough to just keep on going without thinking too much about it. Does it work for you, or do you always have to focus 100, 1000% on everything around you on the screen?
It really depends on the day for me. Like there's some days where I feel like things just flow. And I love being in this creative flow. I think for me, it also comes from like, for example, when I have a daily habit of sketching and like really creating something every day, I feel like I'm in this flow and I get really confident in my art. And I feel like anything that I create, I'm quite happy and pleased with. But then if I have a period where maybe for a week or something, I was too busy to draw, and then I have to get back into it, or maybe also when I put a lot of pressure on myself because it's a commission for like a company or something, then sometimes I have these phases where I get really like where I feel like I'm so not confident in my abilities, and I feel like everything I draw just looks like a first grader drew it, you know, and I feel so and I hate my art, and even my sometimes I look at my current art, I'm like, it's not good enough, I have to get better. And then there's days when I look at it and I feel like, it's actually so good, I'm so proud of myself. So it's like, you know, it really depends for
There
me.
really have a question about this because it is something I'm pretty certain a lot of people usually have issues with. This kind of feeling that you're not up there. Why should you actually put out your art there? Do you maybe have something that is helping yourself about to overcome this kind of feeling and really get this kind of confidence for yourself? Maybe over your friends, or maybe something else that helps you with that, that you are getting out of this rather negative mind space.
Oh yeah. Would you like to start, or shall I?
You can start if you want.
There are many approaches to overcome bad thoughts about art, especially yours, your own. And one is training your own focus on creating your own art, and not thinking too much about what's out there per se. So turn off all the social media platforms and try not to compare your own skills with that of the others. One thing I learned for myself is when I see pictures that I really love, I take them as big inspiration, not to reach a certain kind of level, but to to know that certain things are possible, and I would love to reach this level of possibility for myself. So I keep creating and I keep experimenting, and this is exactly what brings back the fun and that wondrous novelty, that feeling, back into the whole thing. Another great approach is to look and enter great communities of artists, of like-minded people, and also sometimes people who are not artists but who love art, who can give you great feedback, who can share stories with you, or something like Telegram channels where you can just slap in your work in progress and get some good feedback on it. This can really help, and I am in channels too, and I really enjoy these places too. It's a very creative, small space, and they help. It's definitely what I can recommend.
Jojo, it's for you the same, or
Yeah.
do you have other kinds of rituals or maybe traditions that you're taking?
No, definitely. These are really good points. And for me, also, something that really helps me is like sometimes I need to redefine what success means in my head, because sometimes I'm like really, really perfectionistic. I want to really like success means for me that my artwork has to be so amazing and has to look perfect in every way, and every detail has to be right. But then sometimes I draw something and I feel like, oh, it's not really going where I want it to go. And but then in these moments, I try to like redefine what success means. And for me, in that moment, it means just finishing it. You know, just finishing it and putting it out there is a success. It doesn't have to be perfect. That you went through this whole process and made mistakes on the way taught you stuff. And I think that's always the most important thing, to just remain active and keep going, and just learn things. You know, I think that's like the journey is the goal. That's always like the thing that I think we need to remember. Like every big artist started like super super small, and if you that's also something that I really like to do, is to go to YouTube and watch process videos of really breathtaking artworks. And if you watch the process from the beginning and you see how the artist doodled stuff on the canvas in the beginning, and it just looked really not bad, but you know, like really
Archie.
immature in the beginning as well. Yeah, like super whatever, super messy. And then he goes through that process and just trusts in that process, and in the end it turns out to be an amazing art piece. I think that's also something that really encourages me to keep going and to be like, hey, right now maybe it doesn't really look that good, but if I keep going, maybe I can push it and just finish it. That's the main thing.
That's a really good point. I sometimes have to remind myself about the same too, because sometimes I look at my current works and I think about the steps. How did I do this? And then I go back and try to reassemble everything in my mind. And oh yeah, this is how I started. Really simple. And yeah, going to YouTube like you really helps, and especially with certain techniques also that other artists use.
I think
And
that
can you actually believe
Yeah.
that most people feel the very same that we feel? It's like even the great artists out there, the really big ones, like
Yeah.
the old dinosaurs,
Yeah.
they all
it's
feel the same. They
it's
are
crazy.
all, yeah,
I think that is something that
all
would
Yeah, and I
always
Chinese.
think
stick.
so many of us. Oh,
Go
yeah,
on.
I think so many people have this. What's it called? Imposter syndrome, where you always feel like you don't deserve to be successful, or you are not a great artist, and people will find out about that. I actually think this inner critic is also one of the things that can really push you to improve. Because I think if you like get to a point where you feel like, oh, my art is perfect, I'm so happy with my art, everything is perfect about it, I think you won't push yourself to keep creating and keep experimenting until you become better. So I think like a healthy balance. I mean, you shouldn't push yourself down all the time and be like, I'm such a horrible artist, I will stop now, because then that's also not good. But I think having a good balance between, hey, I'm not perfect, I see the faults that I still have, but I want to keep going, and also like where I am at the moment. I think that's like a good
I think that would
balance.
be a great start where we maybe can show the audience a little bit about how you usually process through the whole stage of really making something from the start to the finish. I think you had something already prepared there.
Yeah, for sure. I can show you. It's actually we forgot to like about our journey as artists. That as Alector mentioned, community is such an important factor. For us, it kind of started on DeviantArt because that's where we met as well. It was really funny. I can actually show you that real quick. Is my screen shared or do I have to share it? I have to share it, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yay!
Okay, can you see it?
Not yet, but I'm guessing they're working on it.
They.
I currently have a small army of video and sound guys currently sitting next to me,
Can you turn the camera?
all pretty much just
love to see that.
sweating there.
There's a big light.
Yep, they don't want to be seen. That's definitely.
It's a secret.
Yep.
Secret
And-
streamer society.
And currently they're running around because there's a lot of things going on.
Oh, everybody's running away. Oh.
Yeah, they're currently leaving me alone here. Because right now would be definitely great to show what you're currently streaming about. And I'm guessing the one who currently is sitting on that PC is just vanished.
Oh.
Would someone please press the button?
Press the button now.
You should see there the screen pretty much from what is JoJo currently sending. Aww. Currently here is screening his own screen into Discord, and you should see it somewhere in the window that you have on the main PC. Okay? Are you sure you are currently sharing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It's. I can see it too. Wait. Yeah, I see your screen. You have to click on watch stream, or I did. I had to.
I'm
I
pretty
can
certain
see
that the video guys currently have on the 3 dots in the right up corner. There you can click on more and show non-video. And then you will find the stream. So just for everyone who's currently watching, we are not only just talking about art, but how also you can use Discord correctly. So I hope everyone is currently just getting everything that we are just doing here, so you can do it better.
See, we just talked about we don't have to be perfect, so it's all fine.
It is, definitely. So I would definitely say that you start just talking about what you have there. We are doing in the meantime that we can show it to everyone.
My screen shared now? No.
I can definitely see it. The video team will be about to see it in a very few seconds, so everyone can see it as well. I would definitely say that we are already continuing until they figured it out.
Am I correct?
Maybe in the...
JoJo, sorry. I can see your Discord is open, but I can also see Photoshop in the background. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's fine.
All
That's
right.
the screen.
I maybe have a question beforehand that we can maybe talk about without having any visualizations. Because you just empathized about the communities and you're about to talk about DeviantArt. How do you actually get into communities? What is where you would definitely say that you would start nowadays with the kind of experience that you already made, and where you would maybe start nowadays to get into these communities?
That's a good question. There's so much nowadays. It's so funny. Alector and I, before we got on the stream, we were talking about how everything started, and like even before the DeviantArt, there was Selfwood, which was like a super old kind of like a forum art page, and like even on like in that day, it was very, very difficult to find community. There were like maybe 2-3 websites on the internet where you could communicate with other artists. But nowadays, there's so much. Like there's so many Discord groups. Like so many artists have their personal Discord groups that you can join, and they have these channels where you can share your art and get feedback. So I would definitely check that out and see like some bigger artists offer that. Then there's Twitter, which is also a great way to share your art and then use certain hashtags to reach certain people. I don't know, Alector, what else do you have in mind?
Yeah, definitely. It's always a lot of work to become basically seen in an entirely new community. One thing is to never stop posting, of course, which is often very difficult, especially if you're very busy. But it's always best to really connect with other people. Try to comment on the things that really interest you. Connect with other artists, and maybe do something like contests or art trades. This is something that I used to do a lot, trading art with other artists I really liked. And back then, when we had time, it's always, all the fun stuff. Something like Inktober, or make your own month. You can also create your own topic that you can pull through in a month, like one picture, one scribble a day of some topic you thought out, flowers or something, whatever. Be out there and create whatever comes into your mind. And I also think that most people really enjoy progress works like sketches and so. So some simple things too, little brain wires, basically.
I just received the information that they managed to show the screen, so I think we can go over. Jojo, would you be so
Okay.
kind?
Yes. Can you see it now,
Yes, we can see it.
everyone? Okay, perfect. So I wanted to show you, because I was talking about DeviantArt in the early days, how I met Alector as well. I painted her character, the plant spirit, when I was very early on DeviantArt, and I sent it to her, and that's how we got into contact. And then we started to connect. And I went to an art show of hers. She invited me and my sister. And I still remember I was so nervous to meet Alector because in my eyes, she was such a legend, in the art community. And we were literally shaking before we went there. And we
But
were
you were
always making
too. I
jokes.
was super excited.
Yeah,
I
but
was like,
I
JoJo's
don't know.
coming, Pixie as well. Oh my gosh, help me.
It was just like I had never met anyone from the artist community in real life. It was like always just online. But then meeting you in real life was so exciting, and we were always making jokes, Svenja and I, because you're such a mystical artist and your fantasy stuff like nature and everything, and we always made jokes that probably Alector is gonna like ride on a wolf when she comes into the room, and then like birds are gonna carry her clothing, like crazy stuff went through our head. But yeah, it was super exciting.
But it was kind of
And
crazy with
yeah,
that big dragon cake.
yeah, yeah, like everything was super cool. But yeah, that were the early DeviantArt days, and but I wanted to show you the process steps, how I create my artwork. So I have this one right
Love
here.
this.
So this one is this is just a sketch, but so I was because now it's coming full circle. Everything started on DeviantArt, and I think 2 years or 1 year ago, DeviantArt actually asked me to create something for them for Pride Month, which was super cool for me to create something for the platform that I started my art career on. And I think I showed it last time already, but I want to show you the process steps of how I painted this. So I usually start with a really, really, really quick and rough sketch. Like there really is no pressure in this stage to draw the perfect proportions, or like lots of people wouldn't probably even be able to tell exactly what this is. But in my mind, I'm just kind of setting like markers and flashing out this thing that I kind of envision in my mind. And I just want to put all these elements on the canvas to know how I can like arrange them and stuff. And once I have that, I usually create another layer on top, and I put down the opacity of my first sketch, and then I create a cleaner sketch or line art. which is the second step. And as you can see, actually, lots of stuff has changed. I was playing around a lot with the composition, and I thought that would be nice if everything was kind of going like to the left, like there was like a flow and a direction to the left, so everything is facing that way. Yeah, so that's the clean line art. And after that step, I fill in the shapes with flat colors. And sometimes I already put some gradients into the shapes at that point.
Really love
And
this.
actually, thank you. Yeah, at first I wanted to go with these kind of like bubblegum, pinkish, purple colors. But then I changed my mind a little bit. I wanted to go a bit more, like to fit the Pride theme, I wanted to go a bit more colorful. So in the next step, you can see I already put in a bit more like lights and shadows and a bit more color. So I can do the before and after again. Like I just changed the color theme. And then
It's
in the
always
next,
interesting. Sorry, it's
yeah,
always interesting to see. Sometimes early stages also have their big value. And do you sometimes feel that an early stage has more power than the finished one, even though, you know, you're clearly going to the direction you were planning to, or sometimes not planning to, but clearly to a finish line where you feel like this is complete and this is
yeah,
exactly what I want. And sometimes then you go back and you feel like this is really cool too, and I want to share it all. And
yeah,
another thing is early today we talked about that you back then we used to draw all the tiny details. We used to zoom in all the time and to draw every single stroke of hair. And now you got your painting zoomed out, but we can still clearly read it. We see what's going on, and it's really colorful and bright, and the shapes are perfect. And that's really
thank you.
what makes a good picture.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. It's these little things that you learn as you progress as an artist that, yeah, like you said, in the beginning, if I look at my really old art pieces, like I just put so much detail like that. I was thinking that the more detail, the better the artwork. So I just zoomed in and I put as many details as possible.
Oh yeah.
And now I start usually like in the first stages, I'm probably zoomed out like this. Like I'm really far zoomed out, just so that when I look at my artwork, I make sure that the shapes kind of speak for themselves, like that you can tell what you're actually looking at from the distance, and that everything kind of makes sense and is in the right place. The composition is working, that light and shadows are kind of distributed in a good fashion, and then later on, detail will follow. So, like now, I really try to go from like the most basic stuff to the more concrete stuff, like the details and stuff like that. And yeah, in the next step, I'm starting to paint over the line art a little bit. So when I go back, you can see, for example, for the woman, I'm starting to just kind of erase the line art over it and really touching the character and stuff. And yeah, and then the rest is basically just more and more refining, more and more detail. This stage is usually the one that takes the longest for me. Like these first stages are pretty fast. Like sometimes I can already have like a concept within an hour that if I look at it from far away, it already kind of looks like the final product. But then like really finishing it up and fine tuning it and putting in all the detail, that's usually like 80% of the time I spend on an artwork.
You're bringing up an interesting question
Yeah, and then
in regard of time.
yeah.
When you would be thinking back where you pretty much started out, how long would you probably think that you would have already taken until this very step?
You mean, for example, this step, or like you mean the last one?
No, in between. Where you currently said that you
In
have
between.
pretty much had 80% of the time already spent in there, because that's the step
yeah.
where you spend most of it. So when you're thinking back, when you started out, how long would you think that you
Yeah.
probably would have spent there to get it where you until the very point?
That's a super good question because I can actually show you one of my first digital artworks that I ever created.
See a big eye.
Let's see. Okay, this is
So
actually my
yeah.
very first one. Which one?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
They
But I
always
have to
sound so
mention,
dark, don't they?
I have to mention that this one I followed a step-by-step tutorial on YouTube. So it wasn't like I just didn't magically come up with this eye. This was actually the first one that
This is
I
great.
um, that I painted from my imagination, which looks
It's
horrible,
a
but
very, very outstanding nose.
very interesting. No, but if I, for example, I remember this artwork. I think this is one of the pretty early ones as well. And this one took so many hours. Like I think I probably spent 20 hours on this artwork, and it had like probably 200 layers in Photoshop, which is also a thing. Like back then, I thought the more layers, the better. And now I try to kind of minimize the amount of layers that I use because it just kind of messes everything up. But yeah, like this painting took so much time, and like if like to your question, like this stage, for example, probably would have taken me, I don't know, 5 hours, and now it maybe takes me 1.5 hours. So it's you definitely get a lot faster with time.
I think that's definitely understandable.
Yeah.
Especially with the experience comes the different kinds of steps that you know that simply work, I guess. Or is it different?
Yeah. No, it's definitely. I think every artist, especially in Photoshop, there's so many ways to get to your end goal. Like every artist has their own workflow and process, how they get to where they want to get. But you first have to like really learn how to get there. You have to figure out what your approach is. And I think that takes a lot of time to really get used to everything. Actually, in the beginning, when I started digital art, I really wanted to give up because the first couple of paintings, I was so frustrated with everything. I was like, oh, it doesn't look like even closely like the pictures I see on DeviantArt. I'm just a bad artist. I can't make it and whatever. But it really took time to figure out how all these things work, how you can use these tools, and like to really figure out what your work process is. I don't know what's
And
like
also
for you,
the
like.
experimentation, yeah. It's always used to be a big part of experimentation. I could also share my screen if you like. I got one really old picture and then a newer one of
That
the
would
same creature.
definitely be lovely.
Um,
Also seeing it over the last minutes, so we know what's for you.
oh, how much longer do you have to go? Oh,
We have 10
not
more
have to go,
minutes.
but have left.
10 more
2 more
minutes.
minutes.
10, 10,
10
10,
more
10, 10,
minutes. Sorry.
10. Make them count.
I make them. I hope. Hang on. Wait, that's a different one back. So, um, screens. I got so many screens. Help me. Okay, I got it. Screen one.
Perfect.
Go live. I should be live now.
Yes, at least I can already see it. The video team will probably get it in a few seconds. Not yet?
Love this one.
Okay, I think we at least see it now
There we
over
are.
the stream of JoJo here, so I think we can start already. So we're restreaming over
great.
JoJo. JoJo,
So
could
you can see.
Yep. Could you
the
maybe
art.
enlarge it for us right
Alright.
now until our team gets the... Thank you. Perfect. Alector.
Yeah. So this is one of my very first paintings I did of my plant spirit creature back in 2000. 8 or something. I don't know anymore. But it was a time when I went into digital art more, and when I got my very first Wacom tablet, and I was so excited. And I always wanted to try out so many things and be one of the great concept artists out there. And it was also the time when I created the plant spirit and came up with the very first ideas. And this painting is called Winter Be Gone, and I wanted to pull this up because um, I remember. Oh, you can even see the sketch here in between. You see the tiny leafies that I did not even draw out because there are so many small dots, and you can see the pencil strokes. I actually created the line art with pencil on paper. So this picture exists traditionally as well. And back then, I experimented a lot with digital art and mixed media, even taking photographs and painting over them, or scanning in my artworks and colorizing them in Photoshop. And this was one of them. Only I kind of went overboard with all the details, and I don't know how long this took me. It took me a very long time, for sure. But I also remember once I once I have a painting right in front of me, I'm totally nailed to the screen. Like, give me an audiobook or a podcast or music, and I'm totally zoned out, and I can't just keep going forever. So, and in unfortunately, I don't have steps for this anymore. I pulled this out of my print folder, and I would have to go into my really old hard drives to actually find it. But I got one of the newer ones, which starts off way simpler. And this is basically how I approach art nowadays. Like JoJo said, what counts is the basic rough idea and the whole picture, not just the single details. Details per se can be a ton of fun later when your shapes are totally set. But for this painting, I had more chaos in mind. So the idea was to create a painting of the leafy of my plant spirit in autumn mode. And the first colors, they were really simple. So it's all a little bit chaotic and more with very simple strokes and light. So you can even see a few textures here and there where I experimented with photographic texture when I zoom in, and just to get the light and some of the colors of autumn correctly. So I wanted to give the plant spirit a certain type of glow, you know, that um, old summer glow that you get in the morning or even in the late afternoon. And this is such a great vibe which we already have outside now. So for paintings like these, I have a very simple sketch, just very simple. I throw it in there. I sketch until think it's okay, and then I go away from it, or I set it on a very low opacity, and then I just keep on going step by step, adding light, adding more detail, and also more shapes to it. For example, I try to speak more with shapes instead of detail nowadays. So adding something like leaves that are flowing into the background, done by a custom brush, or even just simple shapes, which I can even demonstrate here. I often paint with a lasso tool. So even if I want a very simple shape, like a leafy, something in the background that's flowing there, that's one of them, yeah. pick a color from my
Because we were shortly seeing it, I hear often from artists it's very, very important to have your own set of brushes because they often help you out to have specific kind of textures that you usually would love with the picture itself. Do you maybe have good advice here for someone who's starting out how to either get brushes like that or how to create them?
Creating brushes is rather simple. If you either start off by a simple shape, or you go out and buy brushes, or you collect brushes. There are so many artists who share their brushes or sell their brushes. And I collected a massive library for myself over the years. And there are so many brushes that I love using that I don't really have special ones. For my comic right now, for Mirror, I have a Mirror 2 Basics, which already is, kind of a whole bunch of texture brushes that I use here and there. And they are the most important ones that I use for backdrops and for the characters themselves, even the sketchy ones. If you create your own brush, it's very simple. Even if you have already a custom brush also set, like this also, you can simply go into your brush settings, play around with all the settings you can find there, and you know find the setting that you really love and that you want to keep, and go try it out first and see if it fits you, and then simply save it up. You can go to a new brush preset, and there you can call it. I often call my brushes awesome brushes and fucking awesome brushes, and oh my god, this is even better brush. So I have lots of and then I have to number them because they are all awesome.
Come on.
And with the newest Photoshop, I mean, hey, you can make your own folders, so it's endless.
So you would
Absolutely.
definitely suggest that people are just getting creative with their own brushes. Just create them for yourself and
Yes.
create a lot as you live and you like. Maybe not just name them all awesome brushes. Maybe it's a little bit difficult to just find everyone at the latest kind of stages. But if you really want to start out, it's a good thing to go on with something like that. Find something that is suiting your style at that moment and that you have a little bit kind of an easier time to get a specific kind of shapes or textures into the picture.
Exactly.
Good. We are
Yeah.
coming to an end at this point. So, since we are talking about people maybe starting out, my last question for you would be what is the kind of advice that you would maybe giving someone from your perspective now that you have already some experience to motivate that you should be keeping going something? Maybe you have something kind of wisdom here?
Oh, do we have some Jojo? Do we have some good wisdom for us? We always
Um,
do.
I think one thing that I would tell my younger self if I started out again, I was always very anti learning actual art basics. I was always like, I have to figure out everything by myself, just by, by doing it. Um, but actually, like learning about composition, about color theory, you don't have to go like super deep into everything, but just the basics, like learning about cool colors and warm colors, and in composition, learning about like, lines that you can use in compositions, and about the rule of thirds and all these things. And like really focusing on learning these things can propel you forward as an artist much quicker than if you are just doing the same thing over and over again. Some people think if you just draw all the time, every day, you make progress, which is true. I think practice really makes perfect. But I think there's even a smarter way to go about it. If you like really look for online tutorials that talk about composition, color theory, values, and all these things, or you maybe buy a course that talks about these things. That's something I would definitely suggest. And then the other advice is just have fun doing it. I think that's also super important. Like the more fun you have doing your art, I think the more you will progress and you will just enjoy the journey as well.
Otherwise, the more zoned out you are, the better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm already
That's
going into
true.
my drooling phase. It's like, art.
I can absolutely understand that.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I lied, it seems. I just got the information that we have more minutes. We actually have something like
Oh.
20 more minutes until the finish of this thing.
Oh,
So
wow.
we can
Oh, wow.
continue with maybe where you just started off with the different kinds of elements, where you shown where you started with and how it pretty much came up to today.
Mm-hmm.
Jojo, would you maybe continue there?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I can have some folders here. Is my screen still shared?
Yes.
I can just show you some more of the progress in my art if you want to the current day.
That would be definitely lovely.
I can actually start with the really early years. Okay, so this is like a really old artwork of mine. I was like, I don't know,
Amazing.
7, 8. And as you can see, I always loved drawing dragons when I was younger, like dragons and monsters and stuff like that. These are 2 dragons that are in love, but the one is crying for some reason, so maybe its heart was broken.
Oh,
Tears of joy.
that's part of it.
And then there's, I think, a few years later, maybe 1 or 2 years later, you can see there's a bit more shading, a bit more detail going on. So there's 2 dragons fighting.
So they came into the
And
drama?
Oh, wait, that's... After the love, there came the fights. And then there's this one,
Wow.
which is from 2008. So I was... So wait, that's 13 years ago. I was 14 at that time. And that's like a short time before I started to post my art on DeviantArt. So that was like around that time, I think. Because that is when I got into digital art. When I turned 14, I asked my parents to give me a graphics tablet for my birthday in Photoshop. And yeah, and that's when I started. At first, I actually started out with photo manipulations. So I did stuff like this. This is so bad. This Paris Hilton as a zombie.
No, it's
Okay.
good.
Or this one. This is myself as a
Cool.
Harry Potter Death Eater.
It's amazing
Casting
though. I
spell.
really love the focus on the eye.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
really well.
So you made a photograph here and then completely redesigned it. Or what did you do here?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a photograph of myself, and then I took smoke and I turned it green, and I used that as the spell, and then I just like changed the whole lighting and colors and shadows and whatever. Yeah, those were like my first experiments with Photoshop. It was really fun to do these. And then I started drawing in Photoshop and painting. I showed you the nose already and some others. This is my first dragon that I did in Photoshop. And then I did some Twilight fan art.
Yes.
It's so crazy if I look at it now. It's like, what happened to these shadows? They are so dark. Like his eyes look so
Set.
I don't know, dark.
I would say some people would definitely love it, from the twinkling kind of vampires back to the, well, very dark ones.
Well, it's often the thing
Yeah.
with beginner artists. They often use very stark contrasts, and they shade with black. And the darker the shading goes, the better. And most of the time, also beginner artists, beginner digital artists, they don't have color calibration. They work on small laptops, So the colors get really wonky, and often they don't see it until they actually upload it. And if you're really unlucky as an artist, you also upload it as a really bad form or a really bad version of sRGB, and then it puts even more contrast on top. So it gets darker and darker and more contrasty. And later in that's something you learn in the progress, in time as well. It's color adjustment and screen colors and so on.
Yeah, it's so interesting also how you develop an eye for these things. I think because back then, for example, this piece. So this is Bellatrix Lestrange from Harry Potter, and I was super proud of this piece back then. I was like, wow, this looks so like a photo. And now if I look at it, and when I zoom in and see it, I'm like, what the hell happened? I mean, it's okay, you know, it's one of
It
my
looks like
first
her.
paintings. I'm still,
Absolutely.
yeah, you can see that it's her and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, like just seeing the hair and like how wonky the lines look and everything, it's just so interesting how your eye changes as well. You know, like at this time, I was thinking that that I didn't even see all these things. Like I didn't see that certain things just looked off a little bit. And I think that's something that should develop in time. And I think that's actually one of the biggest things that will help you to progress as an artist is focusing on improving your eyes and like seeing things. I think for me, for example, when I don't have so much time to actually draw, I still go on Instagram or Twitter or whatever and just look at paintings of artists that I admire, and but not just look at them and be like, oh, that's a beautiful picture, but I look at them and I try to really focus on certain things that they did. Like I try to kind of put a filter on my eyes and focus on the values and the lights. How did they make use of light? How did they create focus in the artwork? Like where did they put contrasts to create a focal point? How did they use lines to lead to certain parts of the painting? How, you know, all these things, how did they use color to create a certain mood? And I try to really analyze these things. And I think that's one of the biggest thing that will help you progress is to focus on these different aspects and then like really understand why certain things make an artwork look a certain way. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It definitely does. It is a very, very similar kind of process when you're, for example, thinking about photography or other kinds of visual arts, where you often think about the composition more and more over the time when you are realizing that you can sometimes, via subtle kind of changes in just the light structure, just focus more on the different kinds of elements that you wanted to, sometimes giving even a complete new dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. It's super interesting. I can maybe show you some of my pieces. So when I joined DeviantArt, I remember this was the first commission that I ever did for someone. And I was super proud to have my first commission. I think back then the commissioner paid something like $50 or something. And I was just super proud to have earned my first money by drawing something for someone else.
That's so well developed already.
Definitely.
I love how it reads all the light and very vibrant.
Though I have another question here
Thank you.
coming, because very often when artists starting out the first time when they are commissioned something, they also sometimes running into difficulties where to sometimes price yourself, for example. That's a very often question that I hear from the community, that they don't really know should I really approach this kind of subject, but also how should I handle different kinds of customers later on. Because most of the people who are coming into this kind of field never have worked beforehand with people who are interested in your kind of style, in your kind of commissions. So they're often finding themselves a little bit in this kind of conundrum. They definitely want to do it, but they don't know really if they can, maybe in the time frame and the scale, or maybe just because the thing that they were supposed to do don't really match with the kind of customer. Do you maybe have something there that you already experienced yourself? For example, about how to price yourself, or really have the difficulties with the customer?
Maybe do you want to start, Alector?
Yeah, yeah, pricing yourself is also something that comes with experience, and especially as artists like us who didn't really go around social media or didn't really have so many contacts with artists like we do nowadays. Um, or thinking about all the shared information that we have access to nowadays, there's so much you can look for on YouTube and on social media to read about when it comes to pricing and especially when it comes to industry standards. And when you are a very young artist, it's very easy to fall into certain traps. Like sometimes you feel so happy and so flustered to be approached for art that you get asked for drawing for exposure, and that can get you into the first trap of you don't know how to price yourself, but you get something like exposure, which is your different kind of payment for the first time because somebody sees you and acknowledges your work, which is still a part of your soul and your own being that you put out into the world. And then you go into okay, then you find other artists who see okay, they put a price tag on their work. Um, one best way to sorry, I can hear myself reverberating. It's very confusing.
Sorry?
Can we do something about the sound?
Sound? Can we maybe make it a little bit quiet on my end so they don't hear themselves? Should be.
All right. Yes. Oh, that's a lot better. Sorry. um, I would say I haven't taken commissions in ages because I'm doing my own personal projects. But JoJo, who's actually in the industry with all the you have many commissions going on right now. Sometimes even really big gigs. Can you tell us more about your pricing? Are they offering you some kind of budget? Or do you make your own prices for this, for example, an hourly wage for the skill that you provide them in the end?
Yeah. I think prices, like you said, it's also like a process, like, and you need to develop a feeling for what is appropriate pricing and what is not, what is too little, what is too much. But I think one big thing is if you are at a point where you have like a distinct style that people seek you out for, and they want your specific art style for a certain project, you can take quite a bit of payment for that because they won't find that same style somewhere else. So you can go for higher prices. I think in the beginning it's quite normal for artists when they are just starting to accept commissions to maybe accept lower prices at first because it's good just to get in the game, and get experience. And I think that's totally okay. But like Alector said, at some point, once you get more and more inquiries for commissions and maybe bigger companies reach out to you, you should really raise your prices and you should make sure that people know that your time is very valuable and that commissioning you will get them something very valuable. And actually, I also found that the higher my prices are, for some reason, I feel like people also value the artwork a lot more in the end. They really got something that is worth something. So yeah, I think it comes with time, and also like depending on how many inquiries you get. Like the more you get, it's just like a free market. You can raise your prices with the demand.
So the people should.
Also,
Oh,
another way to find out later if you feel up to it is maybe do something like auctions or yeah. Where was I? Yeah. What I saw in some of my friends is when they put up an auction and they haven't done a commission in a very long time, they can actually see the value of their work. And of course, an auction isn't really a good base to get started with the pricing, but because an auction also has the rarity factor along with it, but it can kind of give you some base of the pricing that you can take for future commissions. If you have a run, something like taking something like 10 commissions for the next 3 months, you can actually think about how much money you would take for an hourly wage, or how much time you invest into a painting, and how much worth it is to you. And then you can get to talk to your commissioner.
Okay.
But I just remember, Jayan, and you also asked about problematic,
Yeah.
or people who, commissioners
I
who are problematic in
I
some
think
ways.
everyone who had something to do with customers usually had this kind of experience at some point where it was difficult to handle. There can be any kind of challenge there, but I think there are a multitude. I'm guessing you all have something like that also with your kind of plans.
I used to, but not too often. So it's very, it's not too bad for me actually. But I heard stories where artists, peers, they really had to kind of fight with their customers. Sometimes it turned out really bad. But in my opinion, there's always you have to you have to put out your rules and your basic rules of terms of what the commissioner has to expect, what they receive, and how much you're giving. Sometimes I even, in the very beginning, there were artists, commissioners who came to me with pictures by other artists, and they actually asked me to copy the style of the artist. So they didn't want to have my style, which was very strange for me. I did not actually accept these commissions because I'm an individual and I want to create my own works. So that's also one of the beginner's traps that some younger artists can actually fall into, and which can make them feel really awkward about themselves and about their own creations. So watch out for people who ask, who ask you to create pictures that look exactly like the art that somebody else did. So don't do that. Don't do it. It's not good for you. Not good for your soul. Not good for your career.
So
And have you had any strange commissioners? Oh, sorry, Chayanan.
it's absolutely fine. I just want to quickly summarize this. So, first off, it's definitely good that you're going with your guts. You're definitely doing what you think is right, but also that you stand your ground. So, if you have your own kind of rules, that you're definitely sticking with them. That even if something can be maybe a little bit difficult at times, it will help you on the long run. That when you're setting things down, that you definitely know that things that you will be doing, it will be easier with the people to come. So you also will get probably some kind of recognition for this, and usually get also the people in that will get you because you are the one that they want, and not just copying something different. So,
Yeah.
as just Alector said, Jojo, do you had something similar?
Yeah, I have to say also with my commissions that I've had, I didn't have too many bad experiences. But I agree. I think if you really do a lot of commissions, especially for private commissioners, I think it's very good to have a set of rules that you put out in beforehand and you really stick to them. But then also, if you work for companies, I think one thing with that is that you always have to be careful because many companies, like with the contracts and stuff like that, they want to get as much from you as possible without with like while paying as little as possible. So you have to really like make sure that you really read through the contract, and then I almost always ask them to amend certain things in the contract, to change certain things. Like for example, I want oftentimes I tell them, hey, I won't give you exclusive rights to the artwork. I can give you non-exclusive rights, or maybe exclusive rights in a certain niche of products that they are active in, but I still want to reserve the right for myself to use my art maybe on physical prints or on puzzles or whatever. and then also making sure that I receive some kind of payment like upfront for my work. But then also if they sell a lot, that I also receive a royalty for every piece of like artwork or product that is sold with my art on. So that if they make a lot of revenue with my art, that I also get a piece of the cake. So these kind of things, I think that's also something that you have to get a feeling for, because contracts have a very specific language. So maybe in the beginning, if you're very unsure about it, ask someone who is a lawyer or who has experience with that kind of language. But I think in time you will actually also start to understand how these things work and what things to look out for, like what traps there are and stuff like that.
There are so many traps. Yeah, lawyers is a very good approach.
Okay. I think we just had this kind of topic the last time, that definitely your best kind of friend can be a lawyer at points, especially when it comes down to people who are not so, a little bit too liberating with your kind of art, especially selling them themselves. So since we just talked about the subject last year, did you had anything that progressed since then, since last year?
Well, I actually have a progress on the Aaron Carter thing, because that was like one of the big topics last year, that he took my Brotherhood artwork and he used it to advertise for his hoodies and stuff. Actually, we came to a conclusion. We decided to settle the lawsuit. So he paid for it, basically, and he also can't use it anymore in the future, which is really nice. It would have been nicer if we actually got through with the lawsuit, but we decided to settle because the judge kind of signaled to us that there might be some difficulties, like we might not get what we initially set out for, because I would have had to register my artwork with the US Copyright Office and beforehand, before Aaron Carter took it, to be able to get the settlement that would have been appropriate in this case. But since I didn't do that, I didn't get that kind of settlement, but it was still quite good. And I'm still very happy. And also just the message it sends to the art community, it was incredible. Like when I tweeted about it, it reached so many people, and so many people were so happy to just see that it came to a conclusion and that he had to pay for the artwork. I think it was so many people took part at first when the whole thing happened. And then so many people were so relieved to see that there was a conclusion and that justice was served in a way.
Yep.
So yeah, it was definitely worth it to fight for my rights in this case. And I think I would definitely suggest that to everyone to not back down and to really fight for your rights if your art is stolen.
I think everyone here,
Yes.
especially in the community, is extremely happy how it really worked out for you. And I think it's a very, very motivating case for everyone else who had this similar kind of experience, that their art was unrightfully taken by someone else. You have your rights as an artist, and it's definitely something that you can do. So don't undersell yourself, and also stand up for yourself. Stand your ground.
Yeah. Definitely.
Good. So now we are in the last 3 minutes, and this time I checked with everyone. For the ending, maybe the kind of projects that you will be doing. Jojo, do you have maybe something coming up that you maybe can telling us?
Yeah. I'm it's also coming full circle again. I'm right now working on something for Harry Potter, which is super exciting because like I said in the beginning, Harry Potter was what I started with. Like it was what really got me into art. And I was approached by an agency and they work with Harry Potter, and they saw my art that I did for Ravensburger for the puzzles. And they want to create a Harry Potter themed puzzle and also posters and products. So that's super exciting. I'm still kind of in awe. I never thought it would come to this point, that like what really inspired me to become an artist, that I can now do something for them. which is really cool. Yeah, and otherwise, I'm still also working with Ravensburger on puzzles, and yeah, I also really hope that soon, after I have finished all these projects, that I can also work a lot more on personal art again, because, like Alector said, I think that's the thing that really excites you as an artist. So I really want to get back into that as well, and create my own stories and worlds and characters and stuff. That'd be super cool.
I think we definitely cross our fingers for that. Maybe that you're creating some more of these lovely kinds of books that you did in the beginning, that you have completely worlds pretty much put up, maybe with friends of yours.
Oh, I would love that.
That would be amazing. That's one of my big dreams. I want to really want to do that at some point.
Or imagine your school books, they would actually come out as merch for alongside the game that's supposed to come out for Harry Potter. I'm still so excited
Wow.
about the game. I really
Yeah, me
want to
too.
play this with you at some point.
Yeah.
We'll be seeing
we
of
have
it.
to do that. I'm super excited.
How it really comes out. Alector, I think we are talking about your kind of future projects rather soon, because there will be another meeting that we have on Sunday. Yes.
Saturday.
Saturday.
Was it? I
Yes.
think it was Saturday.
I think we
yeah.
said it now on Saturday.
Saturday.
Yep. So I think
Saturday, 12:30.
Exactly. So I think we can there a little bit more into detail what is going up with you and pretty much with the project of Maya. So there a little bit more information with that. For now here, however, I would be closing it down. I thank you very much that you joined us today again as guest of honors. I hope that you definitely enjoyed our little kind of talk. I hope that you may be staying here a little longer, so maybe also being here on Discord so that your fans can maybe talk with you a little longer. For everyone else right now here on the stream, there is, of course, the next kind of art project that comes here. More in the direction that they now have to test their metal with the Nailed It Challenge. I hope to see you there in the next 50 minutes when I have 4 more people joining me here, where they have to draw a character just by name, have to nail it. See you around!